Riddle me this. Are we witnessing a genocide in Gaza, an intentional destruction of a people? Or is that word being used as a political bludgeon against a state at war with an armed group sworn to its destruction? And if the violence is systemic and ideological, is Israel edging toward a neo-fascist project? Or is that an incendiary misread of a traumatized nation's struggle to survive? Today we interrogate the facts, the law, and the narratives. To ask, genocide in Gaza, fight for survival, or rise of neo-fascism? If this video made you see things from a new angle, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Hero or Villain, and share this video. Thanks for watching. Origins, long shadows over a small strip. Gaza's story is older than today's ruins. In 1948, Israel's independence war and the Nakba displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Many families ended up in Gaza's camps, a legacy that still defines identity and grievance. In 1967, Israel captured Gaza in the Six-Day War. Occupation entrenched military rule and settler enclaves for decades. In 2005, Israel withdrew settlers and troops, but retained control over airspace, sea access, and most border flows, leaving Gaza under blockade with Egypt's cooperation. Hamas won the 2006 legislative elections. By 2007, it controlled Gaza after fighting with Fatah, simultaneously a political authority and an armed movement. To many Palestinians, the blockade and repeated wars formed a permanent emergency. To many Israelis, rockets from Gaza and cross-border attacks formed a permanent threat. Those dueling realities set the stage for catastrophe. The breaking point, October 7th and the return of total war. At dawn on October 7th, 2023, Hamas launched an unprecedented attack. Mass rocket barrages, border breaches, massacres in towns and kibbutzim, and mass hostage-taking. Over 1,200 people were killed in Israel. More than 250 hostages were taken into Gaza, figures widely cited across international reporting. Israel declared, "We are at war." Israel's stated objectives: destroy Hamas, free the hostages, and restore deterrence. Gaza then faced months of bombardment and ground incursions. Mass displacement spiraled, infrastructure collapsed. UN agencies and humanitarian groups documented extreme civilian harm and a spiraling crisis. For legal/UN context on the war and protective measures, the International Court of Justice ordered provisional measures in January 2024 in a genocide prevention case brought by South Africa, instructing Israel to prevent genocidal acts and enable humanitarian aid. The case for fight for survival, Israel's security narrative. Supporters of Israel's campaign argue, existential threat. Hamas charter and actions show intent to destroy Israel. The October 7th atrocities reinforced the belief that coexistence with Hamas is impossible. Self-defense mandate. International law recognizes a state's right to defend its citizens from armed attack and hostage-taking. Military necessity. Hamas embeds in dense urban areas, tunnels beneath hospitals and homes, and launches rockets near civilians, making civilian harm tragically likely despite precautions. Targeting policy. Israel says it targets fighters and infrastructure, issues evacuation warnings, and uses legal advisors in targeting. The harm to civilians, it argues, is a function of Hamas tactics, not genocidal intent. In this narrative, survival requires crushing the armed group that precipitated the war, and deterrence must be restored or the cycle will repeat. The case for genocide/neo-fascism. Patterns, rhetoric, intent. Those alleging genocide, or a slide toward neo-fascism, argue civilian destruction at scale, strikes, siege conditions, and the disabling of water, power, and health systems impose conditions of life that risk destroying a protected group in whole or in part under the Genocide Convention. Amnesty International and other rights groups concluded Israel's conduct meets genocidal acts and intent inferred from patterns and statements. Amnesty International +2. Amnesty International USA +2. Displacement and humanitarian collapse. UN bodies describe near-universal displacement and extreme deprivation in Gaza. OCHA has repeatedly flagged catastrophic access to shelter, food, and medical care. OCHA +1. Dehumanizing rhetoric. They point to inflammatory public rhetoric by some Israeli officials and media figures as evidence of intent or a permissive climate. Rule of law erosion. Critics inside Israel cite moves that weaken judicial checks, suppress dissent, and criminalize protest. Warning signs, they argue, of an illiberal, majoritarian project. In this view, the war's conduct and discourse resemble an ethno-nationalist hardening, what critics label neo-fascist tendencies, where security justifications mask destructive, group-targeted policies. Law, evidence, and the burden of words. Genocide is a precise legal term, requiring specific intent to destroy a protected group, not just mass death in war. In January 2024, the ICJ did not adjudicate the final genocide claim, but did order provisional measures, signaling that allegations are plausible enough to require urgent prevention and humanitarian steps while the case proceeds. ICJ-CIJ.org +1. Humanitarian monitors, UN OCHA, NGOs, research groups, have documented extreme civilian harm, displacement, and infrastructure devastation. Some analyses cite very high levels of housing destruction and mortality. On OCHA, Nguyen Palestine +1. Rights groups, including Amnesty International, explicitly concluded that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, a finding rejected by Israel and some states and scholars who argue the specific intent threshold is unmet. Amnesty International +1. Bottom line, the legal battle is ongoing. The moral battle is immediate. The global echo, ceasefires, hostages, and a war of narratives. The conflict reorders alliances, tests international law, and polarizes public discourse. Ceasefire and exchanges. Reports in late 2025 describe fragile truces tied to hostage, prisoner exchanges, and expanded aid corridors, intermittent, contested, and reversible. Information warfare. Social platforms amplify footage, claims, and counterclaims in real time, hardening narratives. Regional risk. Iran, Hezbollah, Egypt, Qatar, Turkey, and Western states maneuver, each step risking escalation or breakthrough. In many capitals, the debate is no longer if there is a humanitarian catastrophe, but whether its cause is war necessity or criminal policy. Human layer, trauma without borders. Beneath law and geopolitics, lives. In Israel, families of hostages live with suspended grief. Survivors of October 7th grapple with PTSD and a shattering of security assumptions. In Gaza, families sift rubble for names to write on graves. Doctors operate by phone light. Children draw homes they may never see again. Diaspora and streets. Jewish and Palestinian communities worldwide experience fear, harassment, and fractures. Friendships and campuses split along lines of identity and memory. Suffering does not cancel suffering. It multiplies it. Did you know? The ICJ ordered Israel to prevent genocidal acts and facilitate humanitarian aid while the genocide case proceeds, an interim step that neither equals a genocide conviction nor clears Israel of the charge. Amnesty International issued a detailed report arguing Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. Israel and several governments reject that conclusion, disputing the element of specific intent. UN OCHA has repeatedly reported near-total displacement and dire access to basics, shelter, water, medicine, across Gaza during the conflict. Sketch of the day. A long, horizontal canvas split by a single road. On the left, a queue of families in Gaza walk past a cratered school, pots, blankets, and a birdcage balanced on their backs. On the right, an Israeli kitchen table remains set for the missing, one plate untouched, a child's drawing taped to the wall, "When you come home." Above the road, a stark stencil, an olive branch whose leaves are pages, ripped from law books, stitched back together with thread. Half plea, half indictment. Entirely human. Final thoughts. Is this genocide, or the misuse of a word forged in the ashes of the 20th century? Is Israel defending its people, or has a wartime doctrine tipped into the destruction of another? And when observers speak of neo-fascism, are they naming a real ideological drift, or inflaming a wound that needs healing more than labels? Perhaps the most perilous outcome is this: each side's pain justifies the other side's next blow. If law is to matter, it must protect before it prosecutes. If peace is to matter, it must see the others dead and still choose restraint. Until leaders dare the courage of prevention, the sirens will return, the branches will burn, and children will learn the wrong lessons too well. Stay rigorous. Stay human. Zooming out. If this video made you see things from a new angle, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Hero or Villain, and share this video. Thanks for watching.